Good evening, class. My name is RDSmall, and the next period of instruction will be on improving the process at work. Why is improving the process at work so important? The reason why improving the process of work is so important, it keeps personnel from deviating from the standardized plan that is in place. Standardized plan meaning how you do a job at a certain manner to accomplish a certain goal. The reason why these plans are in place is to make sure people do not deviate off the process and result in loss of life or loss in equipment. Today's learning objectives is why we receive the same training, identifying the gaps, provide a tracking mechanism, and supervision. Receiving the same training. The reason why you receive the same training is to improve unit readiness. Unit readiness is the key into having a successful mission. It reduces risk and it reduces uncertainty that a commander may have when sending troops on the battlefield. And you're also making a standardized training plan. Standardized training plan prevents a personnel from going renegade. A person that doesn't have a standardized training plan will just act as if he is some modern day Rambo or some modern day universal soldier and stuff and deviate off the plan. When you start deviating off the plan, you do result in the loss of life, loss of equipment, and other things like that may occur, and then the mission is not accomplished. During a training plan, one of the things that you want to do, you want to identify the gaps in training. So in order to identify the gaps, you must have a 3-point scale to monitor them on. The 3-point scale can basically be a basic, intermediate, and advanced level of training. Each one of these training levels or events will have a 2-month training plan. Within the 2-month training plan, it can be evaluations and recommendations to training to make sure the training is being conducted in a manner that is successful or can be applied in real-life situations. On the monthly training plan that I have here, you can see I have a 1 through 8 week training plan. At the beginning level, we started 20 personnel conducting training. As the weeks passed by, when you get to week 3, some of the personnel that did not meet the standard basically fell out, and you see that the mechanism had changed, or the training matrix had changed to 15. So we started at 20 on week 1, week 2, and week 3. Once we got to week 4, we dropped down to five less personnel, which remaining a total of 15 personnel that is complete training. As the training continues at the beginning level, you see a decrease in the amount of personnel that meets every objective for training. That's due to either the training being too hard or some people just not receiving the right period instruction. Maybe the instructor are teaching too fast and the personnel are just not receiving the period instruction correctly. At this time, the personnel that didn't receive the correct training to pass to the next level will be remediated at the time. Once they're remediated, they will be tested again, and then they can continue on to the next process of training. Once you finish week 8 of training in the beginner level, you can now advance to the intermediate level. The intermediate level of training is harder than the beginner level. The beginning level of training is just the baseline of training that everyone needs in order to perform a function. The intermediate level is a more task-oriented level. The personnel get basically tasked with a scenario, and during the scenario, they will have to complete a process to attain a mission. As you see in the graph that I provided, that most people, most of the personnel do not advance past week 5. It's a steady decrease in the week 5 training. Basically, the personnel started at 13 personnel started at week 1. And as you get to week 5, it decreased to 5 personnel that are remaining in the course. Like I said previously, most of that is contributed to either the training being too hard or just they just didn't receive the right period instruction to advance to the next level. Advancing to the next level is the advanced stage of training. During the advanced stage of training, the personnel are given little to no supervision during this training. Most of the period instruction that they will receive is basically at the minimum level, and if this process is developed for them to go out and seek the knowledge that they need to attain the objective. As you see in the previous graph, during the basic intermediate level, you see the same trend of training. As personnel start, you probably started at 5, and as the end of training at week 8, you see that is a steady decrease in personnel that continue the training. That goes into providing a tracking mechanism. The tracking mechanism is there in place to measure the data. The data that they're measuring is basically what are the friction points that cause the personnel to not advance to the next stage. At this time, you can make recommendations to improve the training. Improving the training is basically means either changing the curriculum that is designed, evaluating the instructors that are instructing the class, or just seeing exactly what are the friction points that reduces the amount of personnel passing at the end of the stage. And also with this tracking mechanism, you can monitor the trends. The trends are just the loss of personnel during a training event, or the decrease of personnel that are advancing to the intermediate, the basic, and the advanced stages. The next graph that I will show you here is a yearly tracking mechanism. I have the first, second, third, and fourth quarter of training. Each month of training is also measured from the basic, the intermediate, and the advanced level of training. And each graph will show you that during the year of the training, or during every quarter of the training, of the personnel that passed the course. During the first quarter of training, you have 14 personnel that completed the basic level of the training, basically the beginner's level of training. As you look at the graph for the second quarter, the same number of personnel completed the same training also to the third and the fourth quarter. If you go to the intermediate level, you see the same trend has occurred. So basically, commanders can take this graph here, this yearly tracking mechanism, tracking matrix, and see where they need to implement controls. And that goes to the next part of the supervising piece. In supervising piece, you have to implement controls. Implementing controls basically mean is to find, like I said before, find the friction points of training. Once you find the friction points of training, you can basically evaluate it and enforce the standards of the training to make sure the personnel are getting the right period of instruction at the time. Also, in the supervision phase is evaluation and testing. Evaluation and testing is not just for the personnel that are taking the course. This process can be also administered to the personnel that are given the course. That evaluation piece is to making sure those personnel are given the right period of instruction and basically are administrating the test in a manner in which everyone can attain the knowledge. During this period of instruction, we went over receiving the same training and why it's important for everyone to receive the training. I showed you the process of identifying the gaps and why is it important to identify the gaps so you can identify the training that needs to be implemented or training that needs to be reduced. Also provided you a training method, and in the training method, it shows you how to track the training to make sure you get the best results from the instructors and the personnel that are receiving the training. We also went over the supervision method and why is it so important to supervise the training. The supervisors doing this training will implement controls and they will make recommendations where needed. Also, they will enforce standards. This concludes my period instruction. Do we have any questions? Like I said before, thank you very much. My name is RDSmall.